I'm going to be an honorary Canadian. Let me show you one of Canada's most popular cartographic websites. It's called the Beer Hunter. And in Canada, people drink a lot of beer. I don't know if you know that. If you don't know that, you're obviously not Canadian. But there are certain laws about when you can buy beer. And so this Beer Hunter website lets you say where you are in Canada. It knows what time it is, and then it shows you a map of the closest place you can buy beer, like the earliest time you can buy beer. Like maybe you go to another province or another town, you can buy beer at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., and it gives you directions to the closest beer you can get. So that's only in Canada, basically. And that's fantastic, actually. Even though it's strange, it's still fantastic. So let's start with my remarks for today, which sometimes I talk about strange things. Today maybe a little bit as well. I want to talk about this idea of smart cities, smart models, like smart. Everything's smart now. It used to be it was internet something, and then it was app something. Now it's smart something. So let's just talk about smart, because I think the promise is only realized if we're smart. If we all collectively do really clever things. When some new thing becomes available, like a radio, then some people use it to broadcast, criminals might use it, or the BBC might use it to educate, or people invent television, people invent, I just noticed that Vanessa put the translation on so she can see what I'm saying when I speak American. But like when the invention of television, somebody finally invented Sesame Street, right? So there's the thing, the technology, and then there's the insightful person that knows how to use that to solve their problem, to teach children, to save lives, to whatever. So Henry Ford invented the car. He didn't invent the ambulance. I don't know who thought of that, but that was a good idea, right? So I want to talk about being smart when we talk about smart things. So first I want to talk a little bit about the precursor for smart cities and smart everything, which is this Internet of Everything. Steve mentioned the Internet of Things. So what kind of things are the things in the Internet of Things? You may have heard this. This is important. So let me give you an example. This is an airplane. It's called the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Jim McNerney and I were in Washington, D.C. when the first one flew in to show it to senators. This is the latest high-tech American accomplishment in terms of manufacturing in a certain sense. However, what's amazing about it isn't what you see when you see the picture. What's amazing about it, to me, is the engine. Okay, the engine's one on each side, made by General Electric. If you know how airplane jet engines work, or if you've ever looked at the engine as you're walking onto the airplane, you see these fan blades going around. Well, those are the outer blades, and there's some inner blades as well, some static ones and some rotating ones. Each of those inner blades is subjected to a lot of stress and a lot of heat. And the heat varies along the blade. Different parts of the blade are different, and they can wear out. When they do, that's very bad. If you travel as much as I do, that would be very bad. So they always have to check these all the time to see if they're good. So on that airplane, when it's flying, each blade outputs 2 gigabytes per second to the airplane. Okay? The airplane takes all that data, and it sends that through a special dedicated connection back to the airline. The airline sends it to Boeing, and Boeing has a contract with General Electric, who made the engines, and they process that, and they say, oh, that one blade is a little bit hot on the edge. There must be some little deposit of carbon there. That's going to build up. In 3 weeks, I want to replace that blade. And so then the General Electric computer talks to the Boeing computer, and it says, and that talks back to the airline computer. Aeromexico says, well, in 3 weeks, I'm going to be in Tokyo. And so the General Electric sends a new blade for that particular blade to Tokyo. So in 3 weeks when they land there and they do maintenance, the blade's right there to put it in the engine. Okay, that's amazing. I mean, I don't know if your house works that way, but if my roof leaks, I don't get like a Federal Express package with like a new roof tile that says, there's a slight leak, you need to put this up. That'd be great. So in the future, every physical thing will be a computer, as well as a thing. Every shoe, everything. When your writing pen's about to run out of ink, it'll tell you. That's actually quite interesting. And so this Internet of Things is important because it's connected things. things that measure. That's a big one. Let me show you a small one. This thing on the right is made in Iceland at a company called Star Oddi, O-D-D-I. And they make this little device here. It's about 2 centimeters, about 2 inches actually. And they come in different sizes. And it has a little attachment at the end of it. And you insert that under the skin of a fish. So you catch a fish or a starfish or a shark or whatever. You attach this little thing on it and you toss it in the water. And then for a few months, or maybe as much as a year, it records the salinity, the pressure, the temperature, all these facts about the water, not about the fish, about the water. And then later on, if the fish gets caught, then in Iceland, all of the fishing processing plants, all of the boats have a special, the fish go through a chute, and there's a little electronic sensor that says, oh, I hear one of those things. It takes that fish and sends him to a different tank. And then they go in and they pull that thing out, and they let the fish go, and then what they do is they get the data out of this, and they know the location of the fish, where it moved, and all the ocean temperatures at different heights and altitudes in the undersea. So they have all these fish as data gatherers for the Icelandic fishing fleet. So Judas fish, so to speak. And the thing is that thing takes data samples that there's no practical other way to take. So we wouldn't think about that normally. We think about surveyors out with a surveying device. I want you to think about not surveyors with a surveying device, but a truck that's a surveying device, a shoe that's a surveying device. You know, that's the question. How do you take special tools and make ordinary things serve a special purpose? And maybe they're not as good as the special thing, but millions of them maybe is better than the special thing. Or maybe they are as good. I don't know. That's to be decided. Now, another one, an even smaller one, is this. This is a new contact lens we're working on at Google. If you look closely, there's the little computer chips in there. As you blink, your eye kind of squeezes the top here. And the piezoelectric thing in there generates electricity. You have to run this computer, and the computer runs a special sensor, and that sensor measures the amount of glucose in the tear fluid. So if you have diabetes, you just wear this contact lens, and then as you blink, it has power for a moment, and it measures the glucose, and then it remembers that. Later on, when you run an app on your phone, it downloads all your glucose measure to the phone. And you don't have to prick your skin. You just look at your phone, and it tells you how you're doing. Right? That seems like a great thing. Now, I know it's strange to like put a computer in your contact lens. I know it sounds strange. I know it really sounds strange. But think about if it didn't cost money, then why wouldn't you put a mobile phone and Wi-Fi cell in every square meter of carpet? So as you walk around, you have a perfect signal all the time. You know, why wouldn't you do that? And so the answer is, you would do that. And so you should know, it's happening right now. Okay, that's the world we're talking about, a world where everything is smart. And the question is, how do we make something smart happen because of that? Because they're not really smart. They just have a lot of data. You know, that engine produces bytes about temperatures. It doesn't know what to do. It just produces bytes. Somebody else is smart who wrote the program about monitoring engines back at General Electric. So the question is, how do we be smart like that? So this data gathering is important. Another thing that's happening is a true epochal revolution is going on right now. And if you were in the early morning session, you heard about it. Every speaker basically was totally self-confident that they could measure infinite amounts of data in almost no time. Right? I mean, if you just think about what they said, oh, I took 7 sightings. I did it before I had to go to the bathroom, and now the Louvre is perfectly measured. You know, they were very casual about this infinite data recording ability. Well, maybe that's salesmanship, maybe that's true, but it's certainly more true than it's ever been in the history of mankind. Ever. Like, unbelievably more than it was ever possible. When we started Google Earth, there was 3 friends of mine and I at my dining table writing, quit our jobs, writing Google Earth. At the time, there was no network internet good enough to send the data to another computer. There was no computer with graphics fast enough to draw the pictures. We were just betting that things would get better, and that it would take us a while to get ready. And then when we got ready, they would be ready, and it would all be beautiful. All right? So it worked out for us. So from my dining room to 1 billion users. These technologies that are happening now in collection are really changing what's going to be possible in our industry this year, next year, and the next year. The companies that find ways to use this abundance of data will be the companies that are the ESRI and Oracle of the future. I mean, maybe it's ESRI and Oracle. I'm not suggesting they won't be them. But if they ignore this, it won't be them for sure, right? So the question is, who embraces these things? And so let's talk about that a little bit. So the most important thing in data collection for cartography, national surveillance, national safety, for everything that I'm involved in personally, the most important thing is happening right now, and it doesn't involve Google, sadly. But anyway, it involves the European Space Agency and the countries of Europe. They have this program, Copernicus, and they launched their first satellite. It's called Sentinel-1. Does everybody know that? Some people know that. Okay, those of you that paid taxes to help that happen, you spent your money well. It's this. And it's only been running this month. So it's fantastic. So what this is the first public, data accessible, open source, open synthetic aperture radar satellite of what would previously have been military technology quality. Now, if you don't know all about synthetic aperture radar, you should read about that. But apparently they're going to give away both the direct image and the other images that go with SAR that will allow clever people to do remarkable computations from open data. So this is one of the first images they took. This is Namibia showing flooding. And if we zoom in a little bit more, what you have is day or night, rain or not rain, clouds or not clouds, data of sufficient precision to know about the motion of insurgent people, the motion of boats that don't have AS indicators on them, the motion of tectonic plates, the motion of cars. Basically, physical change is almost impossible to hide now. It was possible to hide before, which is why I never wanted to invade one of the big 6 or 7 countries. But it's now impossible to hide from scientists and high school students because of this satellite. This is transformative. All of the data you'd never had, now you have. If you want to know if some country is cutting down its trees, you want to know if people are chasing rhinos, you want to know if indigenous people's forests are being taken advantage of, the data is going to be available from this satellite. And to me, it's the best thing of the decade right there. Now, there's another kind of satellite I care about. These are some friends of mine, made their own satellite. It's a 25 centimeter cube, and you can see well, maybe you can't see too well, but it's in the middle picture at the top. It's the things with the little yellow Post-it notes on them. Those satellites are made basically at home, launched on a Soviet rocket, tossed overboard with springs when they get up in space. But even as minimal as that is, that's enough to gather the AS signals of all the ships at sea all of the time. So for several years we've been gathering data, and that allows us to see every ship where it goes, to track them, to produce trails. If you look sort of just north of South America, you'll see some interesting South Atlantic behaviors that are obviously survey ships doing transects, because they're not doing straight point to point, they're actually doing Balstrafidonic, back and forth, ox-type path transits. So from my desk or from my hotel room, I can see 200,000 ships today, what they're doing today. Okay? That's something that it used to take governments to do that. There used to be some kind of military supremacy. We can do that now. You'll notice the blue ones, those are fishing ships. We can tell they're fishing ships just by the motions. Fishing ships, commercial fishing ships, move differently. It looks sort of like sperm, in a microscope slide. But it's probably for the same reason, actually. I mean, there's something practical about searching for fish. So this is not like, in 20 years, this might be possible, or if you give me money, it might be possible, or if, this is all basically available data. The question is, who's smart enough to use it in a way to help their country? Who's smart enough to use it in a way to protect their fishing fleet? The president of Iceland and president of Norway, King of Norway, as a group, prime minister, they're working together to protect the Arctic Sea, to institute this kind of good behavior, to instrument ships, to monitor them remotely, to make sure they don't dump exotic species as they use saltwater ballast dump. They want to force them. What's happening? Oh, I'm about to run out of power here. That's interesting. So I guess I'll talk faster or something. So when I see that ocean with the ships moving, it makes me know that the ocean is alive. That's what we can do with cartography. We can communicate to people. Now, I want to talk about presentation for a minute. The kind of presentation could be a static one like this, showing where the ships are, or it could be a dynamic one. I did an interview a couple years ago or a year ago with a magazine, and they said, what have you guys changed in mapping? You know, the Google Earth, Google Maps, what's your change? And I said, well, we took maps from a presentation to a conversation. And I want to talk to you a little bit about conversation, because I think that's important about the future. So this is a Google search. And you say, that's a web search. This is Google searching, so to speak, on mobile phones. And it's pretty ordinary. People do that a billion times a day. What do they actually do? What happens when you do a search? This is what happens. What happens is the data actually goes to a data center. It goes through, that's our Wi-Fi box. That's our network connection right there for a data center. And it goes to some routers, and they send the data to computers. And those computers do the search for you. And what that looks like is this. So when you do a search on your phone, you're talking to 50,000 processors all at the same time. And they're all doing your search on their part of the internet. Okay? All of that gets woven back together and given back to you in about 1,000th of a second. But you're using all 50,000 at the same time. And then the next person does a search. So when you do one of these trivial things on your phone, you're doing one of the world's largest computations. And that's only possible because of the networking between you and this computer, because even if everything's a computer, it isn't that kind of computer. You know, it's not like, you know, millions of computers. And so the big thing about big data, the big thing about networking is that something horrible can be something, you know, massive and unpleasant to actually host yourself can be far away, and you can be wherever your curiosity is, and your question can be answered. And so the question is, how do we use that? The cooling is big too, unfortunately. Now, how do we use that? So to kind of reinvent things. This is an old map. This is a new map. And I just want to show you real quickly just one thing about Google Maps that you probably didn't know, that it's our fault. We didn't do a good enough job explaining. And probably not the beer hunter. As wonderful as I'm sure that is to Canadians. I want to show you this. This is Google Maps. It's very normal. It's Geneva. Here we are. So what I want to talk about is this. So here we are. Here's our conference center. And here's, you know, some buses and tram things. So what you might not think about when you look at this, and this is why I want you to understand the way that you can change presentation in your applications. So there's a map, not very different than a map of all time. And you can see this blue symbol here. That's a bus. It's a bus stop. So which bus stops there? I don't know. Put a mouse on that. What happens? Oh, number 5 bus stops there. Number 22, and the NT stops there. If I click on that, I can learn all about that. Now, the thing is, the bus stops, I can see the bus stop. I can see what buses go there. I can go to the Swiss Transit Authority. I can see what time the next buses are coming. If I come over here, the tram comes over here. I can learn about the tram. So the thing is, the map becomes a conversation. All the markers on the map are alive. Every single thing you can click on every single thing here and learn about it. You know, as you know, even like the building we're in, you can click on that. We can see what's going on there. So what I wanted to say was, like, for example, see it says see inside. Well, let's do that.